All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Rome, and today we got the N5, the N6, and what I'm going to do is just answer a bunch of questions that I got on the initial unboxing of the N6. And mainly the questions were, are haptics better? Are the speakers better? Are the cameras better? And I'm going to answer those today, all right? But I want you guys to keep in mind, I've only had the N6 for a day and a half, 2 days, almost 2 days. So I'm just going to be giving my initial thoughts, initial comparisons between the two, and we'll go from there. All right, let's get to it. All right, so keep in mind, this is not going to be a lengthy video. At least I don't think it will be. I'm just going to go ahead and do these initial thoughts on the two devices. All right. So first things first, let's go ahead and get into the haptics. Boom, boom. And fortunately for me, Oppo has this nice little video that they throw in there that shows you what the haptics can do on each device. So perfect. Let's get into that. So first thing first, on the left, let's keep in mind the N5 is always going to be on the left. The N6 is always going to be on the right. Okay. All right. So let's get started. So let's turn that down quite a bit so it doesn't overwhelm my video. So first things first, I'm just going to keep my hand here and I'm going to talk about what I'm feeling as I'm going through the video. Okay. So first things first, the haptics don't feel refined. They feel kind of clicky here, not really strong. And I feel like even though I have this device on a table, even in a room with any kind of real noise, I don't hear this device. I don't feel it. I don't hear it. If it's in your pocket, you most likely will not feel it. Okay. All right. So jumping over to the N6, let's talk about it. Let's turn it down. So first things first, the haptics on here do feel a bit more refined and a bit stronger, but there's not a crazy difference between this one and this one. Now, I will say that on a table, like a hard table, you probably would notice this one more. It probably vibrate, when it vibrates or the notification goes off, you probably would notice it. But once again, I feel like these motors are just not strong in this device. You probably won't feel it in your pocket. If you're in a room with a slight bit of noise, you may hear it vibrate on a hard surface, but just not on anything with, like, this is plastic right here. And if I didn't have my hand on it, I probably wouldn't hear it. So the haptics are just not strong in this device, a little bit stronger than the N5. And that's going to be the same case across the board with each one of these tests we're going to be doing today. Just a little bit stronger. But yeah, anyway, with that being said, the haptics are out of the way. So just wanted to paint that picture for you guys. I pulled up a DMCA song on here. So we're going to test the speakers now, all right? Let's see. Let me turn on Do Not Disturb really quickly. Where is it? Right here in my face. Turn on. All right. So keeping things moving. DMCA song. The first part you probably won't hear because it's going to be so low. But I luckily I brought out my little sound measure device here. Sound level meter. And that's what we're going to be using to measure these two. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to keep the test consistent across the board. So here, one time up from 0, and hopefully this thing has a little battery. So you can see the room measures at roughly 33 decibels when I'm not talking. So let's see what happens here. Okay, so 9 seconds in, you saw the numbers pop up on the screen, and I'm trying to keep it in frame so you guys can see it, all right? All right, so I'm going to try to keep these at the same level here. So I only played that one to 7 seconds, so. All right, I'm going to try to keep them equal. So now let's get into where we add a little volume, like a real volume to these bad boys. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's almost halfway, it looks like. So crank it all the way down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, so let's test it and see. All right, so you saw that, and you're gonna notice it. This one's always gonna be like a decibel or two above what the fine end 5 comes in at. But let's see. You see that? Like just consistently. So what I'm gonna do now, just a sound warning for you guys. I'm gonna crank it all the way up, and we're gonna get the final numbers from when it's maxed out. All right, you saw that? Okay, let's keep going. All right, so you see, I mean, and you can measure for yourselves. Like I said, that's why I like to provide a visual for you guys so you can just see what I'm working with here. Just across the board, just a little bit better. You see what I'm saying? Haptics, sound, and things like that. Now, I will say this, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. Just as far as battery goes, even though this one has a slightly larger battery, this is the global version of the N6. And I will say that I've noticed that the battery initially right now, only been 2 days, I think the software will learn my use habits and start to maximize the battery performance. But for now, I have noticed that the N6, even though it has a slightly larger battery, is the battery performance is a little bit worse than the N5, you know? So just keep that in mind. Not spending a lot of time there, all right? This is not a full review, a full comparison. So anyway, moving on. Let's get into the meat of this, all right? The cameras. Here's what I'll say. And make sure both of those are in frame. All right, photos. Let's go back because I want to get this out of the way really quickly. Here's what you're going to notice out of the gate. I'm going to zoom into the right side of this photo because what I want to say is on the N5, you can tell that the processing is doing a lot of the heavy lifting here. The lettering just looks more processed here on the N5, whereas on the N6, you could tell that the larger sensor, the higher megapixel count, it's all working together to give the processing on the device more information to work with, so it doesn't have to process as heavily. So the lettering, the color, everything looks more natural here. So that's going to be consistent across the board. That's going to be what you notice the most when it comes to the cameras. Now, jumping over to one more photo here. I took this outside in bright light. I mean, well, outside. I mean, the sun wasn't shining extremely brightly, but when you zoom in, I know everybody's not just zooming in on photos, but you can see this one has a lot of clarity, even though you could tell that the AI is doing a little more, not the AI, but the processing on the phone is doing a little more, quite a bit more processing on here because the lettering doesn't look as natural or as sharp as this one. The N6 the larger megapixel count is doing its thing now. I mean, in the new camera system, I mean, now the size of the sensors themselves are the same. I looked at the specs on both this morning just to make sure that I wasn't going crazy. The sensors are the same, the size anyway, even though this one has a 200 megapixel main sensor and blah, blah, blah. All that aside, the sensors are the same sizes. But the megapixel count is a little higher on the main sensor here, but they are both 50 megapixel 50 megapixel, one over, I think it's 1/2.5. Don't quote me. But yeah, but like I said, the biggest difference you will notice is on the ultra wide and the selfie cameras. I haven't actually taken a selfie with this one yet, but just based on hardware, this one was 8 megapixel. I think it was like a 1/4 inch or something, 1/1.4, something ridiculous. Yeah. But anyway, super small sensor, 20 megapixel, larger sensor. I think it's 1/2.5. Don't quote me, but yeah. So the hardware here in the camera is where you'll notice the biggest difference going from the N5 to the N6. Everything else, speakers, haptics, things like that, they're just a slight improvement, not just drastic. It won't blow your mind when you get the device, not at all. So this is just the initial thought. I want to spend a lot more time with this device before I paint a full picture, do a full comparison between the two, okay? So just bear with me for a little while. But anyway, if you like the initial thoughts, the initial comparison, feel free to drop a like, subscribe to the channel, maybe. And other than that, much more content coming. And I really appreciate you guys being here and hanging out with me. All right. Now I'll catch you in the next one. Later.